It is a Saturday morning in late June. The air in the early hours is still sweet and cool, but you can already feel the heavy weight of the summer heat building up behind the tree line. You step out onto the back porch, holding a warm cup of coffee, looking out over your grass. It is peaceful. Then you look down. Just 3 feet from your bottom porch step, coiled perfectly in the dark, damp shade of a clay flower pot, sits a copperhead. You freeze. You see the distinct brown hourglass patterns running across its dry skin, the wide, triangle-shaped head resting flat against the earth completely still. Your heart drops into your stomach. Your 6-year-old grandson is inside the house, and 3 minutes from now, he is about to come running through that exact screen door to play in the yard. You do what anyone would do. You back away slowly, your boots making no sound on the wood. You get inside, close the door, and call animal control. A professional arrives in a truck with long steel hooks and thick plastic buckets. He finds the snake, secures it, and drives away. 45 minutes of work, and $450 later, the danger is gone. You breathe again. The relief is sweet, but it lasts exactly 1 week. The following Saturday, you walk out to move that same clay flower pot, and there underneath it is another one. Smaller this time, but the exact same species, resting in the exact same dirt. Now you understand. The professional with the hook did not solve your problem. He merely removed a single symptom. Where there is one copperhead, there is an established population moving through the shadows. And the question keeping you up at night is no longer, how do I get this one snake out of my yard? It changes to something deeper. How do I keep the snakes from ever wanting to come back? Stop and think about this. Why do we modern folks run to the store or the telephone the moment nature crosses our property line, paying hundreds of dollars for a temporary patch, while the root of the issue stays buried in our soil? I want to be entirely straight with you before I go any further. Most of what people think they know about keeping snakes away simply does not work. You see folks scattering white mothballs around their flower beds. Understand that this practice is actually banned for outdoor use by federal law because those chemicals poison the groundwater, and a snake will crawl right over them without a second thought. You see the solar-powered ultrasonic plastic spikes at the hardware store that promise to vibrate the earth and drive pests away. There is no scientific evidence they do anything at all. Even the expensive commercial sprays and granules you buy in big plastic jugs cannot show consistent, real-world research that proves they work. This is documented plainly by the National Pesticide Information Center, Utah State University Extension, Illinois Extension, and the Internet Center for Wildlife Damage Management. Most snake repellent products on the market are just a way to turn your hard-earned money into wasted dust. But there are methods that do work. Plain, defensible methods verified by every major university extension office in America. And almost all of them are the exact same habits Pennsylvania Dutch farmers have used to keep their homes and barns managed for over 200 years. No harsh chemicals, no expensive store-bought products, no recurring service calls. Just a careful, quiet attention to what brings a snake onto your property in the first place. I am Elias Yoder. I am Amish, and I farm the soil here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Out here on the farmstead, we have both kinds of snakes. The harmless black rat snakes and garter snakes we are glad to have in our grain barns, and the venomous copperheads we want to keep far away from our porches and our children. My grandfather taught me the rules of the land. His grandfather taught him. And the same 10 methods that kept our family safe in 1838 work just as well today on a half-acre suburban lot. I have tested each one with my own hands across decades of working this earth. Before we dive into them, I must give you a quick word. The old knowledge my family uses is vast. There is far more of it than fits into a single conversation. I have gathered the whole of it into a book at eliasyoder.com. The book is the long version for those who want the deeper details of homestead self-sufficiency. If you want it, it is there for you. I will not mention it again. Let us look at the honest chemistry of why snakes come to a yard. Snakes do not wander onto your property, by accident or out of spite. They come because the land offers them three specific things they need to survive: food, cover, and warm basking spots. If you provide those three things, a snake will find them as naturally as water flows downhill. The food means rodents, the field mice in your garage, the voles tunneling under your mulch, the chipmunks living beneath your steps. A copperhead follows the scent trail of a mouse, the way a hungry man follows the smell of his supper cooking on the stove. If your yard has a rodent problem, you have a snake problem coming. Understand this. No food source, no snakes. The cover means hiding places. The tall, uncut grass, the pile of old building lumber behind the shed, the low, sweeping branches of overgrown shrubs, where a hawk or an owl cannot see them from above. Without cover, a snake feels naked and exposed to its enemies. Without cover, it moves on, and the warm sunspots are their engines. Being cold-blooded, they must use the flat stones, the concrete walkways, and the sun-warmed surfaces near your foundation to heat their blood so their muscles can move. Every one of the 10 methods I am about to show you is designed to strip away one of these three necessities. We are going to break them down, step by step, 7 habits that alter your yard so thoroughly that snakes will find it hostile. 1 physical barrier that truly holds the line around your play areas. 1 folk method honestly explained so you know its real limits. And the natural ally that has kept pest populations down on our farms since the first families arrived from Germany. Let us step off the porch together and look at the ground beneath our feet. I want to show you the first, most critical boundary, the exact measurement of your grass that determines whether a snake sees your yard as a highway or a trap. Take a look at your lawnmower. Most folks roll it out of the shed, pull the cord, and walk across the yard without ever looking at the height adjustment lever on the wheels. That is your first mistake. To make your yard a place where a copperhead feels naked, you must take a physical wooden ruler, place it on a flat concrete walkway, and measure from the ground to the bottom of the mower blade. Adjust that deck until the blade sits exactly 2.5 inches from the earth. When you cut the grass at this height, look closely at what happens. The thick, dark green canopy that traps the morning dew and keeps the soil cool is stripped away. The ground dries out under the noon sun, turning warm and bright. A snake crawling out from the woodlot will hit this line of short grass and stop. To him, stepping onto a lawn cut to 2.5 inches is like a man walking out onto an open, sunlit tarmac with a hawk circling overhead. He feels the exposure instantly. The beginner mistake here is what I call the scalping cycle. Folks get busy. Let the grass grow to 6 or 7 inches until it looks like a hayfield, and then chop it down to the dirt all at once. Understand this, in those 2 weeks of high growth, you have built a snake highway right to your back door. When you finally cut it low, you surprise the snakes that have already moved in, increasing the chance you will step on one. You must keep it regular. Cut it every single Saturday morning before the heat of the day sets in, and do not neglect the fence lines. Take a hand trimmer and clear those thin strips of tall, pale green stalks right down to the gray wood of the fence posts. If you leave a 2-inch strip of tall grass along your property line, you have left a protected lane for them to travel. Now, let us move to the yard clutter, specifically your firewood. Walk out to your woodpile. If your logs are stacked directly on the dirt against the back of your garage, drop your tools and look at the bottom row. Lift one of those damp logs. You will smell it immediately. That sour, earthy scent of rotting bark, dark soil, and trapped moisture. That cool black darkness is exactly where a female copperhead seeks shelter during the oppressive heat of August. To fix this properly, you need to build a raised rack. Do not buy fancy metal kits. Take 4 solid concrete cinder blocks and 2 rough-sawn oak 4x4s, 8 feet long. Lay the blocks flat on the ground, 20 feet away from any structure. spacing them out so the wooden beams rest inside the hollow cores of the blocks. This lifts your wood a full 12 inches off the earth. When you stack the logs, keep the pile neat and only one row deep. Air will circulate underneath, drying out the soil until it is dusty and bright. A snake will not nest in a dry, breezy space where the sun shines right through to the bottom. Let us walk over to the foundation of your house. This is where the real precision work begins. To seal your home so a snake cannot enter, you need two things: a box of heavy, coarse-grade galvanized steel wool, the kind that feels rough and oily to the touch, and a can of outdoor-rated, expanding polyurethane foam. Look for any gap where the gray concrete of your foundation meets the wooden sill plate of your house. Look around the copper AC lines and the white plastic drain pipes. If you find a hole, do not just spray foam into it. A mouse or a snake can push right through fresh, soft foam. Instead, take a pair of thick leather gloves, tear off a clump of the gray steel wool, and use an old flathead screwdriver to pack it deep into the crevice. Force it in until it is compressed as tight as a spring. Then, shake your can of expanding foam, attach the long plastic straw to the nozzle, and insert it into the center of the steel wool. Press the trigger. You will hear a soft hissing sound as the sticky, yellowish liquid expands, filling the microscopic spaces between the steel wires and curing into a hard, weather-tight plug. The snake cannot push past the foam, and if a rodent tries to chew through it, the sharp, zinc-coated edges of the steel wool will cut its mouth, stopping it cold. The beginner mistake here is using cheap, kitchen-grade steel wool. Do not do it. Kitchen steel wool has no zinc coating. Within 3 months of heavy rain, it will rust away into a useless red powder, leaving the hole wide open again. Next, look at your ornamental bushes, your boxwoods and hollies. Grab your pruning shears. I want you to kneel on the ground and look underneath the foliage. If the green leaves are touching the mulch, you have created a dark tent. Take your shears and cut every single branch within 12 inches of the ground. When you are done, you should see nothing but clean, bare brown trunks and open air underneath the bush. The light should pass completely through from one side to the other. If you can see through it, a hawk can see through it, and a copperhead will avoid it completely. Now, let us address the physical line of defense: the snake-proof fence. This is for the small area where your grandson plays. To build this correctly, you purchase rolls of 24-inch or 36-inch wide hardware cloth. This is a heavy galvanized steel mesh with square openings exactly 1/4 of an inch wide. Do not use plastic mesh, and never use chicken wire. A young copperhead can slip through standard chicken wire as easily as water through a sieve. To install it, you must dig a trench. There is no easy way around this. Use a sharp, straight-bladed spade and cut a trench 6 inches wide and a full 10 inches deep into the soil along your existing fence line. Unroll the heavy steel mesh. It is stiff and stubborn. It will try to curl back up and scratch your forearms if you do not hold it down with a heavy brick. Drop the bottom edge of the wire completely into the trench. Attach the upper portion to your wooden fence posts using heavy galvanized steel staples, driving them deep with a hammer until the wire is flush against the wood. Before you throw the dirt back in, take the top 6 inches of the wire mesh that sits above the ground and bend it outward, away from your yard at a 30-degree angle. This creates a lip. When a snake approaches the fence, it will try to climb the vertical face, hit that outward-facing steel lip, lose its balance, and fall back down onto the outside of your property. Once the wire is secured and bent, shovel the heavy clay and black dirt back into the trench. Take a heavy wooden beam and tamp the soil down until it is as hard as concrete. If you leave the soil loose, the first heavy thunderstorm will wash it away, and a snake will simply push its way under the wire through the soft mud. Finally, let us prepare the folk repellent for those who want that extra layer of sensory deterrent. We will mix the cayenne and garlic barrier. Take a large 5-gallon plastic bucket. Pour in 1 gallon of warm water. Open a container of pure bright red cayenne pepper powder. You want the fine stuff that smells sharp and instantly tickles the back of your throat. Dump 4 large tablespoons of the red powder into the water. Next, add a half cup of liquid Castile soap. The soap is crucial. It acts as a surfactant, meaning it breaks the surface tension of the water and allows the spicy oil of the pepper to stick to the grass blades and stone surfaces rather than washing away with the morning dew. Stir the mixture with a long wooden stick until it becomes a cloud. Why? Dull orange liquid with a pungent vinegar-sharp scent. Pour this into a standard garden pump sprayer. Pump the handle until the cylinder is tight with pressure. Walk along the edge of your patio or the stone border of your flower beds, holding the nozzle low, and apply a thick, wet band 12 inches wide. As it dries, it leaves a faint, reddish-yellow residue on the stones. When a snake tastes the air with its tongue to navigate, the moist membranes of its mouth will pick up the capsaicin from the pepper, creating an intense, burning heat that causes no permanent harm but forces the animal to turn back. But remember what I said in the beginning. If you spray this pungent mixture along your patio, but leave a pile of rotting lumber 2 feet away and a family of field mice nesting under your steps, that copperhead will endure the burn just to get to its dinner. The smell will fade after 3 days of summer wind, and the first heavy downpour of rain will wash that orange film clean off the stones, leaving you right back where you started if the hard work of clearing the land remains undone. You now have the ground cleared, the wood lifted, the foundation sealed, the mesh buried deep in the earth, and the perimeter sprayed. The stage is set. But there is one final piece to this traditional system: the living, breathing element that watches your property when you are asleep inside the house. To truly master the land, you must look behind the curtain of these old ways and understand why they hold up under the microscope of modern biology. My grandfather did not know the words for the scientific concepts we use today, but he understood the behavior of the animal perfectly because he watched it day after day. It is not magic. It is basic animal design. When we alter the yard, we are playing directly upon the physical weaknesses of the snake's biology. Let us look first at the internal engine of the snake. Modern biologists call them ectotherms, which is just a formal way of saying they are cold-blooded. Think of a snake like an old tractor with no battery of its own. It cannot crank its own engine or generate its own internal heat. It relies entirely on the temperature of its surroundings to function. If its body temperature drops too low, its digestion stops, its muscles stiffen like cold leather, and it becomes slow and sluggish. If it gets too hot under the direct midsummer sun, its brain will cook and it will die within minutes. Tall grass is so dangerous because it acts as a perfect thermal blanket. It creates a shaded, moist microclimate at the roots, where the temperature stays steady and safe, even when the July sun is beating down. When you adjust your mower and cut that grass down to 2.5 inches, you destroy that blanket entirely. You force the snake into a harsh reality where the ground temperature fluctuates wildly between the freezing chill of the morning dawn and the scorching heat of noon. The snake physically cannot handle those shifts without cover. It is forced to leave your lawn simply to find a stable environment where its body can stay alive. Now consider the tongue. You have seen a snake slide through the dirt, its dark forked tongue flicking in and out of its mouth continuously. Most folks think it is tasting the air or trying to threaten them. The truth is much more elegant. That tongue is the snake's primary steering wheel and eyes. Modern science shows us that when the snake flicks its tongue, it collects microscopic moisture droplets and chemical dust particles from the soil and air. When the tongue pulls back inside, the snake inserts those 2 wet forks into 2 small, highly sensitive sensory pits in the roof of its mouth called the Jacobson's organ. This organ processes those particles and sends a direct map to the snake's brain, telling it exactly where a mouse has traveled or where a predator is hiding. Our folk recipe of cayenne pepper And liquid Castile soap works by directly overwhelming this delicate chemical sensor. The capsaicin in the pepper powder is an intense irritant to mucous membranes. When the snake flicks its tongue over a surface sprayed with our mixture, it delivers those fiery particles directly into its sensory pits. Understand this analogy. It is exactly like walking out of a clean house and stepping directly into a small room filled with thick, blinding wood smoke. Your eyes sting, your throat burns, you lose your bearings, and your only instinct is to turn around and run back into the fresh air. The snake is not permanently injured by the pepper, but its steering system is blinded, and it will retreat from that chemical wall every single time. But I promise to be entirely straight with you. And that means we must look closely at the hard limitations of these traditional methods. No solution is perfect across every square inch of this earth, and if you do not understand where these tools fail, you will waste your time and your money. First, let us look at the limitation of geography and soil. The hardware cloth fence is an absolute physical barrier, but only if your soil allows you to install it correctly. If your home is built on the deep, soft loam of the Midwest or the dark clay of our Lancaster County valleys, you can dig that 10-inch trench with a standard spade in a single afternoon. But if your house sits on the solid limestone ledges of Kentucky, the rocky glacial till of New England, or the shifting, unstable sands of the Florida coast, this method breaks down. If you hit solid rock 3 inches below the sod, you cannot bury the wire. If you simply pin the bottom of the mesh to the top of the rocks, a copperhead will find the small natural hollows beneath the wire and squeeze through anyway. In rocky or sandy terrain, a buried fence will fail you unless you spend thousands of dollars on heavy machinery to blast a trench through the stone. Second, understand the limitation of scale. These 10 methods are designed for the immediate homestead, the half-acre yard, the small orchard, the perimeter around your back porch, and child's sandbox. They are not applicable to large open acreage. If you own a 40-acre horse pasture or a deep 10-acre woodlot, you cannot mow that grass to 2.5 inches every week, nor can you run a quarter mile of steel mesh through the brush. The labor and the cost would break a man's back and his bank account. On large properties, you must accept that the deep woods belong to nature. Your goal is to draw a hard, clean line around the small zone where your family walks barefoot. Third, we must look at the limitation of water and weather. The cayenne pepper spray and the dry powder barriers are entirely temporary. They depend on dry conditions to maintain their potency. If you live in a low-lying creek bottom or an area prone to flash flooding, these sensory deterrents are useless. A single afternoon thunderstorm that drops an inch of rain will dissolve the castile soap, wash the red pepper into the mud, and leave your perimeter completely unprotected by nightfall. If you rely on sprays in a wet climate without doing the hard physical work of clearing the debris and cutting the grass, you are relying on a ghost. Finally, let us speak with absolute honesty about the barn cat. I want you to hear me clearly on this point. A barn cat is not a gladiator. Many folks adopt a cat expecting it to patrol the yard like a guard dog, actively hunting down full-grown copperheads and killing them in battle. That is a dangerous mistake. An adult copperhead possesses deadly venom, and a cat that tries to fight one face-to-face is a cat that will likely die a painful death before the week is out. The barn cat works through indirect starvation, not direct combat. The cat's job is to eliminate the mice and the voles before the snakes ever arrive. By keeping the rodent population at zero, the cat removes the dinner bell. If you already have an established population of large copperheads living under an old concrete porch slab, dropping 2 young cats into the yard will not solve your problem tomorrow. The adult snakes will remain until they get hungry, and they may even pose a threat to your young cats. It takes a full season of the cats working to clear the food chain before the snake population naturally realizes the pantry is empty and moves out. Now you understand the true science of how a snake moves, smells, and lives. And you see the honest boundaries of where these old farmstead methods work and where they fall short. We have laid the foundation, we have cleared the clutter, and we understand the limits of our tools. We are ready now to look at the final missing piece of the puzzle, the specific traditional choices that bring this entire system into perfect balance. To truly understand the weight of these 10 methods, we must look back down the long, quiet arc of time, far beyond the concrete walkways of our modern suburbs. This knowledge did not begin in a laboratory, nor was it dreamed up by men sitting at desks. It was forged in the fire of absolute necessity by families who had nothing but their hands, their livestock, and the untamed wilderness before them. Stop and think about the year 1838, when my great-great-grandfather, Christian Yoder, stepped off the wooden sailing vessel after a long, grueling journey from the Palatinate region of Germany. He brought his family here to the heavy timberlands of Pennsylvania. They did not have a local hardware store to visit when the sun went down. They did not have a telephone to call a specialist when a heavy, venomous copperhead crawled out from the brush and coiled itself near the cradle of a sleeping infant. They had an iron axe, a hand-forged scythe, a few head of cattle, and 8 children to keep alive in a log cabin surrounded by miles of deep, dark oak forest. In those early days, the old folks quickly learned that nature does not negotiate. If you left the brush piled high against the log walls of your cabin, the field mice would winter inside your timber, and the copperheads would follow them straight into the hearth. Out of that harsh reality, the traditional Pennsylvania Dutch farmstead layout was born. If you walk through Lancaster County today, you will still see our old bank barns, large stone and timber structures built directly into the hillsides. Our ancestors designed those barns with a clear, wide perimeter of hard-packed bare dirt or heavily scythed grass separating the animal stalls from the primary living quarters. They discovered that keeping a clean, open ring of 20 or 30 yards around the home was the absolute line between a child gathering chicken eggs safely in the morning dew and a sudden, quiet tragedy in the tall weeds. They bred specific strains of short-haired, heavy-jawed working cats to live in the haymows, treating them not as indoor pets to be pampered, but as a vital biological shield that protected the grain from rodents and, by extension, protected the family from the strike in the dark. Now, you might sit there on your porch and think that this is just an old farmer's story, a piece of rural folklore passed down around a cast-iron wood stove to pass the winter nights. But understand this: truth does not change its coat just because the centuries turn. Look at what happened when modern agricultural science finally caught up to the daily habits of the old folks. In the middle and late parts of the 20th century, state universities began to establish formal agricultural extension offices to help rural families manage wildlife damage scientifically. Researchers went out into the field with notebooks, scales, and calipers to study snake behavior under controlled conditions, and when they published their findings in official, plain-print government bulletins, what did they write? They did not print formulas for complicated chemical sprays or blueprints for electronic deterrents. If you open the official management circulars from the Pennsylvania State University Extension today, or read the peer-reviewed sheets from the Internet Center for Wildlife Damage Management, you will see the exact same rules printed in black and white. They tell you to keep your turf at 3 inches or lower. They print detailed architectural line drawings showing a 20-foot clearance zone for your firewood piles, lifted precisely off the dirt. The National Pesticide Information Center explicitly states on the public record that habitat modification is the only permanent, long-term, and effective method for reducing snake populations around a home. When the United States Department of Agriculture conducts its wildlife field trials, their engineered blueprints for a perfect snake igloo fence specify the exact 1/4-inch galvanized steel hardware cloth buried 10 inches into the soil. that our people have used to protect their vegetable gardens for generations. The old ways are not superstitious myths. They are simply modern biology, discovered 200 years early, through the quiet work of survival. The science is settled, the history is plain, and the path forward is clear. Look out at your own yard right now. I want you to realize something very liberating. You do not need a heavy wallet to fix this problem. You do not need a college degree in herpetology, and you certainly do not need to sign a contract with a commercial pest company that will sell you plastic bottles of useless granules every spring until your bank account is empty. You only need a willing pair of index fingers to inspect your foundation, a sharp blade on your lawnmower, a pair of leather work gloves, and a bit of Saturday morning determination. It is a quiet, deliberate way of living. Reclaiming your property from fear is not about declaring a grand war on nature. It is about learning to work in harmony with nature's immutable laws instead of fighting against them. When you strip away the dark cover, when you lift the wood from the dirt, when you seal the tiny gaps with steel, wool, and polyurethane, you are not destroying the snake. You are simply drawing a firm, respectful boundary between its world and your family's living space. You are telling the animal, in the quiet language of the land, that there is nothing for it here. So, take that list we spoke about earlier. Walk your property line this evening when the air begins to cool and the shadows grow long. Look at the foundation of your home with the eyes of a master practitioner. Clear that old pile of bricks behind the shed. Trim those low boxwood branches until the yellow sun shines clean through to the other side. And secure the lids on your trash cans before you lay your head down on your pillow tonight. Let the accumulated wisdom of 7 generations of farmers work for you on your half-acre suburban lot or your rural homestead today, just as it has worked for my family in these beautiful Pennsylvania valleys since the first axes cleared the trees in 1838. It is simple, it is accessible, and it is completely within your power to achieve. Keep your grass short, keep your yard clear, seal your stone, and walk across your back porch with your cup of coffee in total confidence, knowing that your home is secure, your family is safe, and the old ways have held the line once again.